Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Dual Credit Community of Practice meeting for November. Today's discussion will be focused on the education pathway, which I believe you all should have received a notification letting you know that that would be the focus this month. Last month, we focused on manufacturing, and so we're trying to have a little more of a target for each of these sessions. When I follow up with you, after this session ends and the recording is posted and I send you the link and the materials, which I will do, I will be sure to also invite you to suggest topics for us so that we can meet your needs best. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Renee Savoy from the Performance Office at CSDE. Ajit Gopalakrishnan, the Chief Performance Officer, is away this week, so he will not be joining us. But I do have backup. I have Abe Christ from the Performance Office. He is the Bureau Chief for Student Assessment, and he is going to help me along as with polls and muting and unmuting and all kinds of things. So thank you for being here today, Abe. So our agenda here is on this slide, and along with the agenda, I've wrapped up some material as well. I want to just address some of the grant specifics very briefly, since this all is about the dual credit expansion grant. I know that reimbursement requests have been coming in. I've been reviewing them as they come in. They've been approved. If there have been issues, I've been reaching out to the person who submitted. So I think we're all on track. If you think we're not on track for some reason, let me know. For those of you who are funded with ARPA funds, some of you have ARP-ESSER, some of you have ARPA. For those of you submitting requests for ARPA funds, you must submit some very basic documentation, to some very basic record keeping, which I've discussed in prior meetings, but I'm happy to have a discussion with you after today's meeting as well, if you have questions with regard to that. As far as the communication about these dual credit grant community of practice sessions and other sort of related topics, I have officially transitioned over to using the post-secondary readiness lead contacts that come out of the EdSite Find Contacts report. I've gone over this in previous meetings and explained to you that I'd be transitioning to using that list exclusively when I'm dealing about these dual credit issues with schools and districts. So if you received my reminder over the weekend about this meeting and also indicating that the focus of the discussion would be on the education pathway, then you are a post-secondary readiness lead and you're getting the information. If you did not get that information, but you want to make sure that you're in a part of future communication, then you want to make sure you get added as a post-secondary readiness lead for your school or your district. And one of the resource slides that I've included at the end of this deck that you'll get a copy of gives you some information on how to check those things and who to contact in your district in order to make sure that you've been assigned that post-secondary readiness lead role. For those of you with IHEs who are on the call today, I'm actually maintaining a manual database, sort of a manual list of the contacts at the IHEs. And that started with contact information included in the Dual Credit Opportunities site. So if you received the message from me about the fact that we're going to be talking about the education pathway today, then you're on that list. If you didn't receive it, but you want to receive future communication, reach out to me after this session and I can manually add you to that list of IHE contacts. So that's enough about logistics for the grant and communication. So today we're going to be focusing the discussion, as I said, on the education pathway. We have panelists today from Quinnipiac and UConn, and we were expecting someone from Central Connecticut State University. I don't believe they're here yet. Hopefully they will show up. If not, we'll have a little more time for Quinnipiac and UConn. But before we do that, I want to get some background information from all of you. And I know in our last session, Ajit was very fancy with his Mentimeter. I'm not there, but Abe is supporting me by creating a Teams poll. So we wanted to ask all of you in this session today, do you have an education pathway for students in your school or district? I know some of you do. If you do, make sure you click yes. Maybe it's in progress. It's something that you're building up to, but you're not there yet. That's fine. Or maybe you're just not there yet. Maybe you're here today just to learn more about it, and that's fine. So if you can click one of those options and then hit submit, we'll get a better handle on who's on the call today. All right, so quite a few yeses, but an equal amount of not yet. So everybody's at a different place. The next thing I would ask you to do is, if you haven't done it already, and I see some of you have, is to list your partner institution in the chat. We're curious to see who you're working with in developing this pathway. Even if it's not completely in place yet, if it's in progress, we'd like to know who you're working with. And what I'll do after today's session, when I mentioned that I'll be sending around the resources and our link to the recording, is I'll give you a little summary of this poll and of the feedback we got about the institutions that you're working with. So you'll have that just to review. So thank you for participating in that little status check. I'm going to say, let's go ahead and turn it right over to Quinnipiac. We have Anne Deschelle here with us. She's the Dean of the School of Education, and she happens to be actually at a district partner today for a meeting that's starting at 3 o'clock. So we don't have much time with Anne. So make sure you listen intently and figure out what it is you want to ask her so that we can use our time with Anne as best we can. So take it away, Anne. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. I appreciate it. Thank you to everyone on the call. Again, I'm Anne Deschelle. I'm the Dean of the School of Education, and Renee is right. I'm here at one of our partnered high schools in New Haven, and I'm about to meet about 15 Ed Rising students who are here after school as part of their educational club. They have an interest in becoming teachers, and so I'm here to talk to them about the Ed Rising partnership that we have with a number of our district schools. So some of you probably are already involved in Ed Rising. It's a national organization, but the State Department, working with Shawana Tucker and others, have developed relationships with certain schools and districts. The students have a kind of pre-teacher interest club, but they're allowed to take concurrent or dual credit courses as part of their involvement in Ed Rising. So we offer 3 undergraduate courses that are part of our 4+1 teacher track to any Ed Rising student. We have an ED 140 course, which is basically an introduction to public education. And then we have 2 foundational courses, ED 250, which is multiculturalism and diversity, and then a 260, social and philosophical foundations of education. So students can take up to 7 credits within those 3 courses, which would put them right on track if they were either to go to a community college for the first 2 years or come to us directly. They would already have a number of credits towards the 4+1 program. We're also expanding to offer different concurrent or dual credit options with different areas like U.S. history and things like that that are needed for teacher certification and licensure. But primarily we've reached out. We've had 2 symposia at the university inviting all the Ed Rising students, and have had speakers and a whole day of interest in becoming a teacher, and they've come to the university to increasing diversity in teacher education. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Currently, we have about 30 open slots for each course. The courses are synchronous and online, although this year we've started a concurrent option. So for example, here today, at Metropolitan Business Academy, we're going to have a class here at the university with the 15 students I'm meeting, at the high school with the 15 students I'm meeting today. So Julia Miller, who is a teacher here, is going to be teaching ED 140, the intro course, for us for concurrent credit. So we're very interested in obviously promoting pipelines for education. We actually were really excited. We have 3 Ed Rising students who took 10 free credits during their time as Ed Rising students and are now freshmen, first-year students at Quinnipiac in the MAT program. So we've gotten our first graduates this year.
That's excellent. I know some people through this dual credit grant conversation have asked how important proximity is to the university. Does that play a part for Quinnipiac? Do you mostly work with communities near Quinnipiac?
We have, because we've allowed the option for students to choose to either they can enroll in a class here, the classes that are open to them, or we have options of online synchronous. We had a couple of online asynchronous early on, but that didn't work out very well for high school kids. It was just a little bit, trying to keep up with the coursework. We've also done a number of orientations for students. So for example, in January, before classes begin, we do an online orientation for all the students. In this case, because we have an on-the-ground class, we will bring them to either class or come to them, get them onboarded to Blackboard, get them a QU email, like all the things that they would need prior to being enrolled in the classes. So we do all that early on with them and then answer all their questions. We've also done something interesting, which has worked really well, which is we have peer catalysts in each of the sections of these classes. And that's a student who's currently in our MAT program, but has gone through that class, is probably a junior or a senior. And they're we call them a peer catalyst. It's almost like a graduate TA for the professor, but more importantly, they're there to make connections with the Ed Rising student. So instead, sometimes the Ed Rising students were a little hesitant to talk to professors and such, but they'll talk to the peer catalyst. So we've used the peer catalysts as a way to kind of embed mentoring within the course, and that's worked out really well too.
That's great. So for those of you on the call who have questions for Anne, if you raise your hand, I should be able to mute you. I'm not confident you can unmute yourself, but if you raise your hand, I'll go ahead and unmute you. Or you can chat your question in the chat box as well. So Jamie from Bristol asks, are any of these courses available through Articulation?
I'm not sure what's being asked. What's Articulation?
So I can unmute if that helps.
Oh, awesome. Yes.
What I'm wanting to know is, will you accept our instructors as an adjunct to the university so that we can teach the course within district?
Yeah, that's what's happening. That's what I'm doing right now when I'm at MBA. So Julia Miller, who is a high school teacher here, is going to be teaching a section of the 140 class. So they just work with the professors. Like you said, Articulation, we figure out what the syllabi are, what materials we're using, and then they teach it here. What we call concurrent.
And I see Dina has a hand up. Dina, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. I just want to say thank you to you, Anne. I'm Dina from New Haven Public Schools. I'm working closely with Julia on this project. I couldn't get over there this afternoon, but thank you for representing and being a part of the panel.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm actually going to have to run in like five minutes because I'm going up to see the students in a minute. But
And I
thank,
see Eric had a question from Shelton, and it seems like he has a colleague who's actually responded. So he said, at QU's partner high schools, who is teaching the EdPath courses? And Karen responded, in Ansonia, our students take an online class at QU.
yes.
And our English department head teaches an SCSU education course at Ansonia High School. She's also the lead for team in our district. I just wanted to give voice to that because I know there are plenty of people who will be watching the recording who don't have access to this chat. So hopefully that information is helpful. Any other questions before Anne has to leave us? Feel free to raise your hand or chat it in. All right, it looks like no questions at the moment.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Renee. Thank you for the opportunity. Hey, Chris, how are you?
And good to see you.
Any questions at all? My email is my name, ann.deschelle@qu.edu. I'm on the web. More than happy to follow up with any of you if you have any other questions. But thank you for the opportunity, Renee. Sorry to run. And thank you, Dina. I'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our next set of presenters are from the University of Connecticut, and it looks like our representative from Central was not able to make it. Oh, there we go. So if you need a little more time, Chris, that's completely fine, and we can engage in a longer discussion as well.
That's fine. Thanks, Renee. Can you see that everybody can see the slides okay, right? So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chris Todd. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Early College Programs at UConn. I'm really excited to be here today, one, to sort of talk about the options that we have available, but also to introduce you to three amazing members of the ECE community who I think you're going to hear from more and can answer some of your questions. The UConn ECE program is excited to partner with the NEAG School of Education to offer courses. And I think one of the things that we're really excited about is obviously that expanding the courseware is to our high school students not only gives them the opportunity to explore education as a career pathway, but also sort of introduces them to the NEAG overarching community. When you think about the 1,000 of students that are actively enrolled, the 24,000 plus alumni of the program, and the amazing faculty that we have. So sort of starting off, I want to just take a moment to introduce Dr. Joe Mattis, who is a faculty member within our education and psychology department, who will talk a little bit about what the vision was for the partnership.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joe Mattis. I'm a professor in the special education program, which is part of the Department of Educational Psychology in the NEAG School. And our goal as being part of ECE is, like Ann said, is to help to try to build a pipeline of aspiring educators. And our focus is largely on underrepresented populations to help them become teachers, but also try to address critical shortage areas, and I'll speak to that in a moment. And the quote on your screen is from our dean, Dr. Jason Irizarry, saying, aspiring college students often don't have the time for career exploration. We need to be proactive in nourishing the pool of future educators and ensure our programs stay strong. And so that really speaks to the idea of trying to, what Chris said before, trying to expose students to our courses and to the field of education, and to try to build our pipeline. So we're currently offering these 4 courses. I'm going to start in the middle. Those are the older offerings, our first offerings within ECE. The first one is, these are both within the Department of Educational Leadership. EDLR 1162, Health and Education in Urban Communities. This is a 1-credit course related to the history and social forces regarding health and education. And then we also offer EDLR 2001, Contemporary Issues in Sport. And one of our colleagues, Keir, is an instructor of this through ECE, and he could speak to this more. We also offer a course through the Department of Curriculum Instruction, EDCI 1100, If You Love It Teaching, which is really an overview of education in the United States, including historical, philosophical, and social foundations. And then we also offer EPSY 1100, which is Introduction to Special Education. And so this is the course that I'm the faculty coordinator for. And it really focuses on providing an overview of the history of special education and of disability, looking at different perspectives related to disability in terms of medical model, social model, et cetera, and then getting into different types of exceptionalities that students have in American schools. But it also focuses on the range of career opportunities for professionals within the field of education, not just special education, but school counseling, school psychology, and other roles in those areas. So these are the courses. I mentioned Kier is teaching EDLR 2001. Carolyn, who's also with us, is an instructor for both EDCI 1100 and EPSY 1100. She can speak to those more in a moment as well.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah. The goal for today is really that you get to hear from our instructors and Dr. Medeiros more than myself. So you can ask questions about what it's like partnering with the program and sort of what they're hearing from students in the classroom. Similar to Quinnipiac and we sort of have a 7-credit pathway that many partner schools have been looking to build out. When you think about looking at EDCI 1100, If You Love It, Teach It, and ESPY 1100, Introduction to Special Education, as sort of 2 foundational courses as you're thinking about education, and then wrapping those around with EDLR 1162, which has a practical component tied into it. We've had conversations with both our faculty coordinator for the EDLR 1162 course and CEA. So as many of you are aware, EdRising and CEA's Aspiring Educators Club were both running simultaneously. So we had some districts that were partnering with CEA, some districts that were partnering with EdRising, and both have sort of merged together to adopt the EdRising curriculum. And so one of the things that we're looking for is making sure that EDLR 1162 also partners with the EdRising club opportunities for students so that you can really kind of bake it in and have that 7-credit pathway available. The slides will get shared out with everybody, but just kind of wanted to provide everyone on the call an opportunity to think about the timeline for adding a new UConn course through the ECE program and sort of where we are in the fall. Right now, our new instructor application cycle is just opening up and getting started. And then we'd be working through kind of late fall, early winter, and then building out the spring where eventually like the instructors will be approved. They'll attend our new instructor orientation. They'll get to work with some of our amazing faculty coordinators to sort of bake out the course and then be ready to offer in the upcoming year. But again, all of this will be available. And then to Joe's earlier point, I'm most excited. We have 2 amazing instructors with us today. Carolyn Messier is an instructor for 2 of our courses at East Hartford High School. And Kier Callis, I thought it'd be really powerful to hear from because the EDLR 2001 class doesn't really fit necessarily into this education pathway when you're thinking about contemporary issues in sports, but Kier can speak a little bit to where it lives at Windsor High School and sort of how students have portrayed that. So Carolyn, I'm going to kind of kick it over to you if you want to talk briefly about what East Hartford's doing to support education pathways.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on this call today, everyone. So I'm brand new to teaching both of these classes, but it's been very eye-opening for me. Just all the new learning that I'm experiencing and the students in my class are experiencing. I think one of the most interesting and telling things about the course is that each week we sort of check in as a class, like where our interests fall, what we might want to be focusing on, where we're thinking the future, what the future might look like. And as each week passes, I have more and more students that are sort of saying, you know what, I wasn't really so sure about teaching, but I think I might want to be a teacher. I think I might be able to do this. And that's just simply based off of how the class is structured. Students have a lot of clinical and observation time where they are getting that hands-on experience And they're having that like real-time application of learning, which has been really awesome. Specifically with my Introduction to Special Education course, I have a lot of guest speakers come in within the district, and students are working on an inclusivity project currently for the district. So they're really invested in, you know, this planning for our district and more specifically for our school. So the classes both are so far a high interest class. I have 34 students in my Intro to Teaching class, and I have 21 students in my Intro to Special Education class. This class is offered again in the fall and the spring. So I'll have new students come January. Any questions that anyone has, I'd be happy to answer, and I'll share my email with anyone who'd be interested in contacting me more about the logistics of the course.
Thanks, Karen. Kira, do you want to speak a little bit to EDLR 2001?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I teach contemporary issues at sports here at Windsor High School, and it's been a lot of fun. I taught it for the first time last spring. It's a semester-long course. We only had enough interest the first go around to fill one semester-long class, but it went well, and this year we were able to fill 2 semesters of it. So I'll be teaching it. I'm teaching it now in the fall. I'll teach it again in the spring. Both of those classes are pretty filled up. We were able to increase the number of students who are getting the EC credit from 3 last year up to 14, and I'm going to try to make sure that number keeps growing. But it's a really interesting class. I very much enjoy teaching it. It's contemporary issues in sports. A lot of our high school students are very interested in sports. So you kind of get some just natural interest that way. But, you know, it's not so much, we're not debating who's going to win the Super Bowl, right? It is about sports, but it's more about how society is a reflection of sports. And that allows us to go in a lot of different, really interesting directions. Here at Windsor High School, it lives in the social studies department. In the rest of the day, I teach social studies, modern global to be specific. If you have any questions about imperialism, let me know. It really, it's a lot of fun to be able to, you know, bring in a little bit of anthropology, a little bit of history, a little bit of, you know, sociology. We do a little bit on journalism and the media. We were able to get some people who work from Sports Center anchors. Jay Harris came in and, you know, talked about his experience as a sports journalist. So that was really interesting. UConn has been phenomenal at providing assistance and, you know, all kinds of, you know, stuff, whether it's like my students right now are working on their position paper. The rubric, the expectations for that, I pulled right off of UConn. So as far as it being an early college experience, I feel pretty good about that my high school juniors and seniors are writing at a level that UConn would expect them to write at. And, you know, they're hitting all the same expectations that you know, students who are actually at the University of Connecticut would also be expected to do. And UConn was happy to provide me with that rubric and everything else. So shout out to Danielle DeRosa, who's answered a ton of my questions, and, you know, even brought my students into UConn. We were able to see some classes and tour the campus, so that was a lot of fun. But it's a really interesting class. Like I said, the application process, I saw that someone was in the chat asking about what qualifications do you need. The application process was rigorous, but I kind of like that because now that you're in, UConn has kind of given their stamp of approval. They trust me in a sense to you know, run the course as I see fit. You know, obviously, you know, within certain parameters, right? I can't just go off and do whatever. But I appreciate that there's a certain level of like, you're a professional, you know, you applied, we looked over your stuff, you know what you're talking about. go do your thing. And so, you know, like I said, it's an interesting topic, and we're able to take in some really interesting directions. We've covered a lot of different things, transgender athletes, athletes as civil rights leaders, the interplay between sports and media. I think after they're done with their position papers, we'll start talking about, you know, fan behavior, the psychology behind that. There's just a lot of really interesting ways to go about learning about this, and again, you know, not so much about sports, but, you know, some really bigger issues and bigger questions that extend beyond the athletic field. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm looking at some of these other classes and kind of thinking that, wow, maybe I should just teach all ECE classes. They all sound interesting, but I think this has been a really good experience, and anyone who's thinking about doing it, I would encourage you to do so.
Great. Thank you, Kier.
You're welcome.
So, and as Kier mentioned, we have amazing faculty coordinators that work with all of our departments. At this point, the program has 95 course offerings across 38 departments. So sort of to Anne's earlier point, students have not just the opportunity in terms of the education specific coursework, but also being able to get some of their content specific gen ed requirements out of the way as they're thinking about which certification concentration area they might jump into. I'll stop sharing at this point, and again, I'm happy to send out the slides. There's also a great article in UConn today that talked about the growth of the NEAG course offerings. With regard to, there was a question about the instructor qualifications. Our education classes are a more broad pathway than you would see for some of our departments. Just in general, that somebody with a master's degree in education is most likely going to be eligible to teach the course. To Kier's point, the contemporary issues in sports looks for a little bit more with the social studies lens in terms of social sciences or political sciences, your ability to kind of navigate and facilitate conversations. And then to the ed psych class, we're looking for somebody with a master's degree in special education or certification and experience in special education, but they are relatively broad pathways. So thank you to everybody. Renee, thanks for giving us the opportunity to share. And if there's other questions, I'm happy to address those in the chat, or anybody from the ECE team.
And Kier, I want to sign up for that course. It sounds awesome. It sounds so interesting. It must be fun to teach.
It's a lot of fun. And I think the students really enjoy it too. We get a lot of students who are athletes who are very interested in sports, but one of the things that makes me very happy is, you know, also we have students who just aren't that into playing or watching sports, but because we're looking at it through like a historical social science lens, they are also having you know, a really positive experience. So yeah, again, if you are at all interested, I would highly encourage it.
Great. Okay, thank you so much to UConn and their district partners. We appreciate you sharing and taking the time here. We have our representatives from Central here. We have Dr. Kurt Love and Jessica Hernandez, who has joined us before. She's our dual credit contact for Central, and they can talk a little bit about what they're doing with their district partners.
So let me just jump in, I guess. I want to just say how excited we are and give credit to the School of Education. Before we even forayed into concurrent enrollment, the School of Ed was already looking at and working with K-12 partners. And it started with faculty members who were actually going to the high schools to teach courses and registering students to be able to earn credit that way before we had a system in place that we're working on building and expanding now for concurrent enrollment. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Love and then maybe wrap up with some nice ways that we're tying the work that School of Education is doing with enrollment at Central.
I wonder, it doesn't seem like we have audio from you, Dr. Love.
How about that?
Oh, that's better. That's better.
Good,
I can hear you now.
Yeah. Sorry, I had my office computer crashed, so I had to do a swap. So you know how that goes.
Yep, I do.
Happy to be here. Thank you all. Nice to meet you all. So yeah, we're doing some scaling up for sure, which is great. We started doing dual enrollment as a process with New Britain High School years ago. And it's great the last few years that we've been able to really move to a concurrent enrollment model, and so much interest and so much receptivity, and it's great working with so many high school teachers. And so in general, we're talking about the educational pathway here as well. And we have about 6 courses or so that are all in opportunities for high schools to use. And so it ends up being about 13, 14 credits or so that can be used sort of broadly across the professional program as well as general ed requirements. And then, of course, there's more outside of the educational pathway that we offer here. But the ones that we're focusing in on are early childhood. We have an elementary course as well. We have a foundations course that works with specifically culturally responsive teaching. We have an ed tech course that we're redesigning and looking forward to launching that in the fall, and a special ed course as well, and a tech ed course. So we have a collection, a wide variety of courses that we're offering here, and working with lots of incoming districts. So I would say our approach has been, just broadly speaking, our approach has been that we really enjoy working with people in terms of them being like adjuncts. We really treat our colleagues as if they're adjuncts. They're here, they're part of our faculty, and we want them to always feel that ownership as well, that they're great. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, it's amazing working with high school teachers who are so just willing to jump in, take on these courses, and have these wonderful high standards, and do things like come to campus and have their students presenting in conferences. And we're always trying to make sure that we have good pedagogy behind the work that we're doing here with that. It's such an important component, so that the courses are high quality, but they're also courses in which the way in which they're taught are just as paid attention to as the content itself. So that's just, again, sort of broadly talking about our approach.
Thank you, Dr. Love. And so I guess what I will just add, kind of as we sum this up, is that we have been very intentional in terms of the populations in the school districts. And while we do want to partner and are looking to build partnerships with a wide variety of K-12 partners, I think that our emphasis on growing the teacher pipeline in general, but specifically looking from an equity perspective and an equity lens in some of the districts that we're partnering, really making that connection with Ed Rising at the schools. New Britain is an example. And so just, in terms of how we make that bridge, so at New Britain High School, the high school teacher who teaches the courses there for us is also hired at Central as a coach to work with our first gen underrepresented low income students who go into our TRIO teacher prep program. So we're looking at building the pipeline and connecting. So what's happening at the high school? How do we help coach and support students who are transitioning on the college side? And then really leveraging our resources for the TRIO SSS teacher prep program. And so, that's kind of a long-term vision, and hopefully our partnerships through concurrent enrollment will really help revamp and strengthen what we're looking to do once students get to Central.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm interested to hear from the district representatives, those invited by UConn, but others too. How do you go about marketing the programs that you have, specifically around the education pathway, to students and their families? How do you generate interest? Does anyone have any specific examples that they could share? That seems to be something that people are interested in learning more about. And if you have an idea you want to share, you can put it in the chat or you can raise your hand and you can unmute. Beth?
Hi, this is Beth from Manchester, and we actually are planning with our video production teacher to have students in like the broadcast classes and the journalism classes do some commercials and market that with our marketing classes too, to kind of try to get the kids the story told by students who are in a lot of these pathways that we're really working towards. And I will give a shout out to Dr. Love. We've articulated 2 courses with CCU in the last year, and it's gone really great. They've been fabulous to work with. So.
That's great. That's good to hear. Are there any other questions, comments, things you want to present to the group, a challenge that you want to share? And Leslie from Westbrook is saying that Westbrook doesn't have dual credit for education courses right now, but we use our career pathway structure of recommended courses to market our current dual enrollment as well as other coursework. So that's a useful strategy. And I see Windsor hosts an AP ECE night where students and parents can come talk to the teachers running those classes to get an idea of what is available and be motivated to sign up. And I'm sure just the buzz in the school about the sports class probably helps too, you know, and it's not that different from what Manchester wants to do, right? Like students promoting it to other students. So that makes a lot of sense. Dina, I see your hand up. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so pathways are relatively new in New Haven, but we have 2 different types of things going on. So some pathways we enroll students from 8th to 9th grade. So there's a lot of visits to the 8th grade. We have, 41 schools, so say 29 elementary schools. So getting students to start to go and market their pathways is our next step, but really doing conversations at the school level. And then we're shifting the majority of our pathways to be 9th grade is more of an intro to all careers through freshman seminar, and then enrolling students in 10th grade. So it will look a little bit different because students will already be enrolled in our schools, and so the marketing will happen right at the school level. But definitely need help with that piece as well. Hearing what others are doing is helpful. Getting the word out and making sure all families know is always a challenge in a large district. So really working on our website and getting information out in any way possible.
I think in general too, one of the things that I've sort of learned, I guess, through this dual credit grant experience is, and I think I've probably mentioned this in previous meetings, the work that the schools are doing, there's some really impressive work happening that just isn't getting amplified enough. And so whatever we can do through these sessions, through other communication efforts that the CSDE has, whatever we can do to sort of spread the word about what's really effective and what's kind of innovative, and for schools to potentially adopt and adapt for their own context, share those things with us so that we can get the word out more. Those are the kinds of discussions we want to have on these sessions and the kind of information we want to be able to share more broadly. So keep it coming. Any other questions or comments? I don't need to keep you longer than what we have conversation for. So I guess we can wrap up. I see a hand. Natalie, I should have given you a little more time. Go ahead. I think you should be able to unmute.
Yes, hi, thanks. I was just thinking, I know sharing the information is terrific and, it opens our minds to get thinking. But the idea that one of the people from Quinnipiac was at a school talking with students today, I think where we can have that personal connection, either with representatives from the colleges coming and sharing information with our students, and or as a culture of practice, you know, the group that we have here today, having individuals visit the different schools to see the programs in action. Because the whole idea, a picture tells 1,000 words, I really do feel that being there in person would make a huge difference to inspiring people to grow their programs.
That's a good recommendation. So facilitating more opportunities to see these things in practice is what you're suggesting.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe that's groups of us go together rather than as individuals,
Right.
and learn in that in-person sense.
All right, thank you for that. Any other suggestions, questions, comments? Mary Rose.
Hi. So just something we're actually doing next week is we've put together a presentation for our Board of Education and helping them understand the difference between an AP course and an ECE course or a dual enrollment course. And because these are often the people who make decisions about the budgets and what they're going to support and the programs that they'll support, we're hoping that this will give some teeth and some foundation to the things that we're trying to build on in our district. So that's another way, it's another way to get the message out to the broader community as well.
That is important. I think that's it's important for everyone to be paying attention to, right? Anyone else? And I see Chris from UConn has put in a link that may be helpful to some of you when you're trying to have the discussion about the benefits of AP versus ECE, and having those conversations. And I know those are can be challenging conversations in some districts. So hopefully that will be useful to you. Okay, one last call for comments or questions before we wrap up. All right, I would just like to make sure that I thank everyone who took the time to share what they're doing from UConn and Quinnipiac, even though they're gone, and Central and the district partners, and everyone else who attends these and is willing to share their thoughts and questions and ideas. We really appreciate it. That's what makes this valuable. You'll be hearing again from me very soon, and I will be sending along the slides and the recording link. And please feel free to reach out to me with any questions or clarification, or if you need contact information. So for some of the people who are on the call today, I'm happy to get that for you. But I hope you can enjoy the rest of this afternoon. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks.